Callaway's new Rogue ST drivers represent a breakthrough in driver performance. The Rogue ST drivers are Callaway's fastest, most stable drivers ever. Think speed, go Rogue with Callaway, the kings of distance. To find out which Rogue ST driver is right for you, visit callawaygolf.com.au.
Hello and welcome to episode 64 of The Thing About Golf, Golf Australia magazine's ongoing quest to find an answer to that unanswerable question, just what is it that draws people to this game? Rod Morri's my name, and on this episode we're going to meet one of Australia's most successful, yet lowest profile, international golfers. Brendan Jones is a 15-time winner on the Japanese Tour and a one-time winner on the secondary US Tour. Yet he often jokes that his neighbours in Canberra have no idea who he is and must sometimes wonder what the bloke next door does for a living. And that is just how Jones likes it. He's not uncomfortable with celebrity, but he's got no interest in pursuing it. And as far as golf goes, well, he breaks a few conventions there as well. He doesn't love the game and he's happy to admit it. He has no desire to be the best player in the world or win all the majors. In fact, he didn't even miss golf when the COVID-19 pandemic forced a year off. A year he spent not practicing, but working as a landscaper. Jones says he plays golf because he's good at it. And if you need proof of that, consider this. After that year of landscaping and playing no golf, Jones's first tournament back ended up with a playoff loss to Jared Felton at Bonnie Doon. In a world of cliches where players are constantly telling us about all the hard work they do and seeing how it pays off and being driven to be the best and wanting to have it all, Jones is a refreshing change. And I hope that comes across in this chat. Well, Brendan Jones, it's a big thank you for joining us on The Thing About Golf. It's quite the commitment, we know that. We'll start at our usual jumping off point. What's the thing about golf for Brendan Jones?
You're asking me what the thing about golf is?
Yes, I'm asking you what the thing about golf is, as though there is some thing about golf.
Well, I don't know. That's an interesting question. What is it about golf? Probably for me, the thing is I'm pretty good at it.
You are? We'll talk about that.
Yeah. I guess so. I guess that's why we're talking here, are we?
Partly, although we tend to interview all sorts of people on this show, not just players. And we have an obsession with players and good players, and that's understandable, particularly for all of those of us who can't play barely at all. We're fascinated by those who can. But there are so many people who are hooked on the game from so many different walks of life. So I want to take you all the way back. Where did it start for you? What are your first memories of golf?
Well, we are going back a fair way. I reckon I was somewhere between 5 to 10, most likely about 7. And I grew up in a place called Churros Head down the south coast of New South Wales. And they're in the process of actually building a golf course. And it was all hands on deck. And, you know, it started out as all voluntary sort of labour. And my old man sort of encouraged me to go out and help and pick up sticks and rocks and that type of thing. So probably that would be the earliest recollection for me. And then once the golf course sort of took a little bit of shape, then we could get out and play on it. And just tag along with the old man.
So it wasn't just the golf I'm sensing. That would have been a real community-spirited thing when a bunch of people get together to volunteer their time to pick up rocks off fairways to make the golf course more playable the next week. There's something more than just golf happening there, isn't there?
Yeah, I guess so. But that's growing up in a small community, and that's what people did. So, you know, it was, for me as a kid, you know, I didn't know anything different. So it was just something to do on the weekend, you know. So my recollections are, you know, I've seen photos of me back then when, you know, when the course was in its infancy, and, you know, it was exciting, I guess. Something new.
Yeah, well, things were a long way from there to where you are now, playing on the Japan Tour on golf courses that are extraordinarily manicured and whatnot. Just as a sort of a part of that, when did you first realise, you said the thing about golf, you're good at it. When did you realise you were good at it? How did that come?
Oh, it was probably in the teenage years, maybe around about the 15, 16, when I was starting to get picked in state teams and squads. And I think I played an under-18 Australian team. So at that point, once you're being selected for these representative teams, then I thought that I possibly could, go further in the game. And as it's turned out, it seems to have paid off for me.
Did you play other sports as a kid, or was it always golf for you?
No. I was playing everything. It was tennis, it was cricket, it was surf life saving. You name it, I was sort of doing it. When you grow up in a small community like that, that's what it is. It's a sporting. All your downtime is done by sports, and I got to a decent level at most of the sports that I picked up, and I got to a pretty good level at tennis as well. And it sort of got to the point that I had to choose one or the other, and without making a really educated guess, I went with the golf, probably because I was a little bit better at the golf. And looking back on it, if I had have chosen the tennis path, and even if I was good at it, I would have been at least 10 years retired by now. So I think in hindsight, I made the right decision to go with the golf.
You'd have been a good deal broker too, unless you're one of the very, very top players. A lot less players making a living out of tennis. There's a lot of more people making a living out of golf. There's a more,
that's right,
more sort of call for it. Do we see that anymore? Kids, you play with a lot of young people, because you and I are not young anymore, Brendan. I hate to break it to you. You must play with a lot of young
I realised
blokes.
that, Rod. Thanks for bringing it up.
Do we still see enough kids I've heard Curry Webb talk about this, the tragedy of kids who've been single-minded, focused on golf from a young age and haven't played other sports, particularly team sports, and some of the things that you learned from that. Would you agree with that? And is it still possible to be a multi-sport kid and make it in golf?
Yeah, I think so. I just think if you've got that hand-eye coordination, you've got that ability to play most sports. And I think it's important to try a lot of different sports to get an understanding of, what it takes to do different things. And, you're never going to know what you really like unless you try a sort of diverse range of things to do, whether it be sports, whether it be music, whether it be other things. You need to try and have experiences in these to then make an educated decision on, what you'd like to do moving forward.
Anything you feel like you learnt from playing those other sports as a kid, which has held you in good stead for your whole golf career?
No. One thing I do think that golf has really helped me with is you seem to grow up a lot quicker. You surround yourself with older people, and you learn the respect and the integrity of the game by being taught by older people and constantly around older people. So for me, I think that's what I take out of what I've learned from golf, more the respect and, being polite and, just learning to grow up a lot sooner than a lot of the similar age kids that aren't playing golf.
Yeah. You mentioned getting picked for state squads and those sorts of things at the age of sort of 15. You went on to win the Australian Amateur. This is an impossible question to answer, I know, but you'll get the point of what I'm asking. As you stood there with that trophy that time, looking ahead, what did you see for Brendan Jones? What were the movies that played in your head of what the career might unfold? And how's that compared to what's actually happened? I would imagine they're somewhat different.
Yeah, they are, because you never really know. I'd had a very successful amateur career, and it seemed to culminate by winning the Australian Amateur in '99, and it just seemed to be the next progression for me would be to turn pro. But things happen very quickly, and you turn pro and you just, you've never had those experiences. Yes, I've played professional tournaments along the way, but, all of a sudden when you don't have state associations sort of helping you out along the way, you're just thrown in by yourself and, you are a complete rookie. So there's a lot of learning, and you've got to learn very quickly. You need to work out what works best for you. It's a stressful thing to all of a sudden be out there by yourself, playing golf courses you don't know, experiencing different things. It's a big eye opener. What I thought when I'd won the Australian Amateur was, I'd pretty much done everything in the amateur game. Now the next thing would be to go and try my hand at professional golf. And, I've seen a lot of people that have had a lot of ability sort of try and never really take that next step. So there's so much doubt as to whether or not you can actually do it. And, I was lucky. I had a fantastic golf coach behind me who just simplified everything for me. Told me exactly how it was. When I won the Australian Amateur and was thinking about turning pro, Alex Mercer, he says to me, "Look, mate, you're good, but you're not that good. So you need to go and learn the intricacies of the game. You need to go and learn how to win. You get out of your comfort zone, learn how to win, and then you might want to think about taking on the best in the world." But the advice that he gave me was the best that I could have possibly had. He pointed me in the direction of Japan, and I'm very grateful that he did that.
A couple of things happen, I guess, when you turn pro and you've got some ability. You win the Australian Amateur and all those sorts of things. As you say, you go from being a big fish in a little pond to a tiny little guppy in an ocean where nobody cares about you, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
From the star of the show to nothing overnight.
Once you're pro, no one cares about your amateur record.
No, that's exactly right.
You're just another person on tour that they're trying to beat.
Yeah, what's the old saying in a field of professional golf? If you make 7 on a hole, nobody cares except for the bunch of blokes who wish you'd made 8.
That's probably
about on the money, isn't it? And Alex Mercer. The Mercers, for listeners outside Australia, famous golfing family here in Australia. I think there were 3 brothers, the Mercers, went to Alex, David and...
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Alex is a well-known coach, worked with Steve Elkington, I think, also for a long time. How did that relationship develop and how important is that? You're a particular sort of personality, Brendan, different to a lot of other golf pros that I know. I can't see you being fascinated with TrackMan and the numbers and studying the analytics and all that other stuff. You just play golf and try to get the ball in the hole. And there's no doubt some things to be said about that. The importance of Alex in that, developing that, working with that, because I imagine good coaches work with players who've got all sorts of different mindsets, and he's probably been just as successful with players who want to know all of the numbers and all of the data. So talk about the relationship with Alex and the importance of that for young players especially.
Yeah, well, look, I first met Alex when I was a member at Morri Golf Club, not far from Churros where I grew up. And Alex, he used to go around New South Wales at the time and do clinics for, a lot of the members around the place. And anyway, when he came to Morri, there was, I think, a few people pushing me forward saying, we've got a good young player here, come and have a look at him. And anyway, Alex, and at that point I was using the baseball grip. And, I was thinking, I was going to be a Ted Ball and, no one's going to change my grip and I'm going to be really good. And anyway, he came down and had a look, and the first thing he says was, all right, you need to change your grip. And, and probably not long after that, then I was in the New South Wales squads, and then I was flying to Sydney or driving to Sydney to go and see Alex. And the thing that is so great about him is that he's so simple with his teachings. He's old school. There was very, very little video. He could just watch me swing it, didn't need to see where the ball went, and he'd just tell, he'd be able to work out what was going on. And for me, that's what I needed. I just needed simplicity. I didn't want any confusing, and I don't know anything about the golf swing, but I know about my golf swing. Yeah. And that's what I need to do.
It's a staggering truth for some good players. I remember Laura Davies was once on a television show where I was sort of working behind the scenes writing a few scripts, and I remember somebody asked her, something about swing plane, and she just had this quizzical look on her face as if, well, what's a swing plane? I got no idea what a swing plane is, and how do you hook it? Well, you just do that, and then it hooks.
That's right.
Is there something to that? You can get lost in the rabbit hole of data, TrackMan, angles, paths, spin rates, all that sort of stuff, can't you? Have you ever dabbled in that?
Only recently, and when I say recently, only 6 to 8 weeks ago, and that was when...
That's extraordinary, Brent.
When
That's extraordinary.
When I was being set up for a new set of clubs. And, that was pretty much the only time. Like, I have been on TrackMan before, but I've never been that interested. But look, it's a great thing for a lot of people. But, for me, I like to see a certain ball flight, which might not, it might not sort of look like the right numbers on TrackMan, but that's the way I play, and that's what Alex has always said, why do you want to be the same as other people? You need to differentiate. The things that differentiate you are the little differences that you have. And, I've never also had the ambition to be number one in the world. If I can make a career out of the game, then I'd be very, very happy with that. Yes, I'd thought I could be a top 20 player in the world, but I didn't quite get that high up in the rankings. But for many years I've been in the top 100 in the world, and I was very happy with that. And my little piece in the golfing atmosphere, I was quite happy to just trundle along like I was.
Let's not pretend like you're done yet either, Brett. you stepped out. Well, you stepped out of 2 years of landscaping and Dandy won a tournament in Sydney, having not swung a club for nearly 2 years. But we'll come back to some of that. You're talking about being comfortable in the way you play. I often feel the same way about golf clubs, and you would understand what I mean here. You can pick up the world's best driver that statistically is the best everything. If you don't like the look of it when you look down, you can't hit it, can you? It's just it's not going to happen, is it?
That's true.
It's that
true.
simple, isn't it?
You've got to be happy with what you're looking at. And for me, that's something that over my career, I've very rarely changed clubs. Yeah. The new clubs that I'm offered need to be exceptional for me to want to change. And, you've just got to find something that works for you. And, until something comes along that makes things better, then you go with works. Yeah. For me, I've always been simple. I don't know anything about shafts. I just hit shots, and I tell the guys that are fitting me, I say, that's the shot that I want. If it's going too far left, I don't like that, and I'll go and find something for me. So, that's what they're good at. And, they should be able to go and find something for me.
Yeah, indeed. The motivation to be the very best player in the world, we read this stuff, we revere these sorts of things, do we? Do we overplay sometimes the role of ambition? You'll often read hard work does pay off. That's actually not true for everybody, is it? Necessarily. It's only one part of, you said yourself, lots of talented players don't make it. It's only one part of the equation, isn't it?
Yeah, I think people need to have realistic goals. And I always thought to be the best in the world, the chances of that happening are very, very, very minimal. But also I was somebody else that, I never fit the mould of someone that just was a grinder, that just would go and practice, hour after hour. And that's another thing that Alex said, there's no point going and spending hours and hours and hours on the driving range. You just have to go to the range, work on something, and then go away and play, because you just standing for hours and hours on a range, you get tired. And when you get tired, your form changes. So, I've always done things in little bits, and, and that's pretty much worked for me. Over my career, you'll see that most of my wins have been early in the season when I've just had time away from golf, and I come back and I'm fresh. Because golfers aren't that smart. So you finish the year, you forget all the bad stuff, and then you come back the next year and, the game's fresh and new again. And that's pretty much how I've looked at it.
Despite all the evidence to the contrary, you all stepped to the first tee expecting to play well for some reason. You could never make the case in court, but we somehow do it. On the world number one thing and that sort of ambition, I remember Mark Leishman said to me once, he said he'd been up close to Jason Day when he was the world number one at barbecues and social events. And he said, and he'd watch Jason and he'd say no to a second beer. And Leishman said to me, I'm not that guy. I like to have that second beer. There's a real balance, isn't there? There really is sacrifice. You would have seen up close some of the very best players in the world. Their life is very different, isn't it? They don't get.
Oh, it is.
They get all the money, but they don't get to enjoy the things we do in so many ways because they're driven by this need to continue to succeed.
Yeah. There's differences, of course. People are driven by different things, and I know and I understand that to be in the top 20 or top 50 in the world, to then the top 20, the top 10, to be the best, you've got to sacrifice so many things, but to do that, these people are willing to do that. And, I take my hat off to those that have succeeded and been to the pinnacle of the game. And, whether it be the top 10 in the world or number one in the world, it does take dedication. And, I'd certainly take my hat off to them. But, there are guys like myself and Mark Leishman, like everyone that knows Mark knows he's a knockabout bloke, and they know that he's got the game, and he can win majors. But I just think he's found that right balance in his life too. His family's important. He's got his place there back home where he's got his own golf course, and he's place. He's happy, he seems happy. So, everyone's different, and the world's made up by different people, and we can't all be the same.
No.
So
happiness might be the key, mightn't it, Brendan? That if you're happy, your golf has to be better. If you're spending hours on the range and it's not something you enjoy, there can't possibly be a net positive outcome of that, can there?
Very true.
Vijay Singh loves the range. It's his happy place. That works for him.
Yeah.
If he didn't spend time at the range, his golf would probably suffer. So it's different horses for different courses. Just to date this a little bit, I'll quickly get your thoughts on this. You can't let this go. We're doing this Masters week. We're not 100% sure, but it looks 99% certain that Tiger's going to tee up this week, which is quite extraordinary. Your thoughts on him? You've grown up playing in the Tiger era, well and truly. The 99 Australian Amateur was 2 years after he won his first Masters. Some thoughts on him and what you've seen the impact of him to the game, and then maybe just the possibility of him actually playing this week at the Masters, which is staggering.
Yeah, look, I got into golf because of Greg Norman.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Norman, he was the man when I was young, and, he was the guy that us Aussies wanted to emulate. But as you said, I'm the same age as Tiger, and I've played my whole career with Tiger there and watching him on TV and doing things that we couldn't even imagine doing. But at the same time, Tiger has brought money and he's into the sport, and, along the way, prize money has increased, and, I've been a beneficiary of that. But yes, I play in Japan, and Japan's been always playing for good money. But, I've played World Golf Championships and majors and played with Tiger or against Tiger in match play. And, just to watch someone that is that professional and that good and that, watching someone with an aura about them that you just can't stop watching them. That's what Tiger is. Tiger's just, as big as Greg was, Tiger's just taken that to the next level.
Yeah.
And so
it's one of his keys to success, isn't it? Other players, even very hard to impress a tour pro. Tour pros don't stop and watch anybody hit golf balls or do anything on the golf course. They do what they do. Tiger's maybe that exception in this generation, isn't he? He built such an aura about himself that I remember Jeff Ogilvy said to me once, the key to playing against Tiger is to not watch him. Don't be distracted by watching him, because you'll...
That's true. If you go to the range and you're trying to work on something and then Tiger comes and hits balls on the range as well, you're not sort of practicing what you went there to do, because all you're thinking is, well, Tiger's, 5 days away and I have to watch Tiger, and then you're there thinking, why am I here now? I forgot what I was meant to be doing. But, that was Tiger. Greg, back in the day, wherever he went, people watched. And it's the same with Tiger, but Tiger was just taking that, as I said, to the next level. He is, he's the greatest of my generation and possibly ever. Jack was a little bit before my time, and, I didn't get to see Jack play an awful lot, but, they're the two I would say that has transcended the game of golf.
Yeah. Well, Nicklaus has got the record, hasn't he? But I think most people will agree Tiger's played the sort of golf we've never seen from anybody.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think there's probably a few more players around when Tiger was here that, when Tiger was at his peak, that, the Ernies and the VJs, and, there's a lot of really, really good players. So the depth was a little bit stronger, I guess, but, not taking nothing away from Jack. You can only beat who you're playing against, and he did that.
Yeah, indeed. Just quickly back on the last little rabbit hole we'll go down, and we'll come back to sort of your career and what's unfolded. Since you told me once, after you won the 99 Amateur, you got an invite to the Australian Masters. You played a practice round with Greg Norman, which made an impact on you, I'm guessing still with you today. Tell people what happened that day.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting thing. I was quite happy just to be playing in the Masters, and I was having a practice round with Matthew Ecob and Ken Druce, and we just teed off the first hole, and around the side of the clubhouse, Greg Norman came, and I was just watching him, and then he asked the three of us if he'd mind if he joined us for the round.
What face did you pull?
I don't think I could talk, but I think maybe Matty said, "Yeah, fine, let's go," that type of thing. And anyway, so I was just going to go and play, a easy little practice round with Matt and Kenny, and next minute I'm playing with Greg Norman. So that was just an incredible moment. But and then he didn't play very well the first 9 holes, and I'm thinking to myself, he'll only play 9 and then he'll go to the range and work on a few things. Anyway, he played the whole 18. And then on the last green, he got us together in a circle and just had a word to us about certain things. And he said that, everybody playing this week is a good player. And he said those that are going to be there at the business end this week are the ones that believe in themselves and believe their own ability. And that was the year that Craig Spence hit a 5-iron on the last hole to a foot to beat Greg by a shot. And anyway, it just resonated with me. And I think a week or two later, I was playing the Tasmanian Open, and all I could think of was, having that self-belief. And anyway, I went and won the Tasmanian Open, and I put that down to just thinking a little bit differently. Just hearing those words come out of Greg's mouth just made you realise, like my dad could have told me exactly the same thing, and I would have said, Dad, whatever, you don't know anything. But coming out of which, I shouldn't say that to my dad. Dad, I love you and all. But coming out of Greg's mouth, it hit home. And, it's something that I still remember to this day.
Such a simple message, isn't it? As you say, it's such a simple message, and it makes so much sense. But where it comes from, because you're a dad yourself, Brendan, and you know as well as I do that your kids think the same thing about everything that comes out of your mouth.
Yeah, exactly. It's true.
They'd have to hear it from somebody else. Greg's got his critics, much of it warranted, and particularly lately, I suspect. But he didn't have to do that, did he? Do you take lessons from that? And I don't know how much you get asked, but are young players interested in being mentored and picking the brain of someone like yourself who's been at it for the best part of 25 years and what they can learn from you? Chuck Fowler's another one who's always been extremely generous with his time. He told me recently he rarely gets asked these days by young players anything about some of the off-course stuff and ways to handle a career. So talk a little bit about that and the importance of that and what Greg did that day, which I think he's done for a lot of Australia. He's upset a lot of Australian players over the years too, but he doesn't have to do that. And then the importance, as you said, 25 years later, it still sticks in your mind.
Yeah, it does. And, I'm the same that, all the young kids that are coming up now that ask me anything, I just say, yep, well, there are other options as opposed to going straight to the PGA Tour. That's what everyone wants to do. And, I don't discredit any of them, but to get there, you've got to learn a lot of things, and getting advice from those senior players is something that I think is very important for young players. You've got to learn, you've got to experience different things, and you take what you want out of everything that you hear. And I just think something, just one line from someone might be something that might be the little thing that you need to get you to that next level.
Everybody else around a young player and involved in a young player's career, which is not to say their motives are nefarious, but they've all got an agenda, isn't it? They all want something. Other players don't. It's unbiased advice in many ways, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You're not looking for something from the young player. You've been asked to give, and you give something. So it comes a little bit differently, isn't it, to what a manager or parents or siblings or other halves or whatever might think. What are some of those things, Brendan?
I'd just say that you don't be afraid to try different things. You don't have to listen to everyone. If you do things your own way. You've got to find something that works for you. I've had access to sports psychologists, nutritionists, all these types of things. Now, for me, sports psychologists, unless that person talking to me has been to a high level in a certain field, whether it be business, whether it be sport, I find it hard to listen to a sports psychologist tell me how I should be feeling and what I should be doing if they've never experienced that type of thing, But some people will just go to a sports psychologist and say, I just need that help, and they're willing to listen to that. So, I would say get the advice from all the professionals, and then take out what you want from each and every one of them. Yeah. It's like a nutritionist, through a golf week. For me, I enjoy having a beer or two every night. That's what works for me. It relaxes me. I don't go doing more than that. But, a nutritionist might say, well, you can do it a couple of times a week. But you've just got to work out what works for you. And for anyone coming through, I would just say listen to the experts and then take out what you want from that. Adapt
it to what works for you. Don't just assume that everything's
right.
100%.
That's right.
There's no might about what that nutritionist might say, BJ, and you know it deep down. That nutritionist's never going to tell you it's okay to have 2 beers a day because that's kind of their job. Can you recall, I suppose the Norman thing is one example. Can you recall things that have resonated with you that people have told you over the years? How have you come to this position where that's the advice you'd give? Have you taken advice that you wish you hadn't?
No, I just go back to Alex Mercer. He's been the one person in my whole career that I've pretty much listened to everything that he said because he's just so simple in what he says. And, he is old school. There's none of the new stuff, like the exercising, the training, the eating. And, it's like whatever works for you, you've got to understand your golf swing. And if you understand your golf swing and you know what you're doing, then the game itself shouldn't be that difficult. When you think about it, the game's not hard. You've got a white ball here, you've got a hole up there. Yep. You've got to get that from here to there. Doesn't matter what your swing looks like, but you've just got to know how you're going to get it there in the least amount of shots.
Yeah.
And, from that line that Greg Norman said and Alex Mercer, who I just think is a wonderful, wise person, that's been my whole, thought process on golf.
Callaway's new and improved Chrome Soft family of golf balls is better for everyone, from amateurs to major winners like John Rahm, Phil Mickelson and Annika Sorenstam. Now with Callaway's proprietary new precision technology, the Chrome Soft family delivers Callaway's highest quality, best performing and most consistent golf balls. To learn more about precision technology and the new and improved Chrome Soft X and Chrome Soft XLS, visit callawaygolf.com.au.
You started the story about Alex by telling us that he told you you're good, but you're not that good. How important is that? We've got a whole generation of young people, I feel, that all we do is tell them how good they are. How important is it to have somebody at least in the background telling you, hey, you still put your pants on one leg at a time, buddy, don't try that around here?
Yeah, well, it's something that needs to be told, like there's too many yes people hanging around a lot of people. And, I'm playing the Japanese tour up here, pardon me, and I just see it all the time with the good Japanese players. They've got so many hanger-oners and, just all constantly being told how wonderful they are. And they're just not winning week after week. So, you've got to have that realism and people, you just need to have that people around you that are going to knock you down, especially with the Aussies. You don't want to get too big for your boots because, you are going to be told. And that's what you need. You need some people around you that are going to just let you not get too far ahead of yourself and just tell you, okay, yep, you are good, but you can still improve.
Family's important for that, isn't it? I think probably particularly kids, because up to a certain age they don't know or care, do they?
My kids, my boys still don't really know what I'm doing. They know I play golf, but their interest level's pretty low.
One can imagine at school someone's saying, hey, my dad plays a bit of golf, and your kid's going, yeah, my dad plays a bit of golf too. Does your dad go to Japan for 3 and 4 weeks at a time? No, he just plays on a Saturday. Oh, right. I didn't realise. You're a homebody, aren't you? Is that part of the appeal of Japan?
Yeah, look, I think the older I've become, I've got that life balance more worked out. I'm getting back to the last 2 years with me not playing any golf. I just think it made me realise that most golfers that play professionally are always worried about losing their status and losing, their job as such. Pretty much I've felt like I'd lost my job for the last couple of years. And you know what? The first year I was sitting around not really, knowing what was happening. And then the second year I sort of said, well, I'm not going to sit around doing that again. Yes, my sort of job has been taken away from me. Well, I've got to find something else to do. And it just, put things into perspective for me that, when golf finishes, there are other things to do, and not to be worried about that.
What did you do, and how much reflection did you have the opportunity for? I felt at the start of the pandemic, and we didn't know how long it was going to go, but a break like that was going to be really, really bad for a lot of golfers, would make life very difficult, but it was actually probably going to be quite a positive for some. And you might be one of those who could have been in that some. What sort of reflection did you do over those 2 years? And has it changed your relationship with golf? Because the kid at Churros Head who hits his first one out of the middle and falls in love with the game is not the Brendan Jones that's trudging the fairways of the Japan Tour when things aren't going great and you've missed 2 cuts and you're worried about your card and all those other. You've got a very different relationship with golf in those 2 situations, don't you? Did that time away change the relationship with the game for you, do you think, in any way?
Look, I think it came at a perfect time for me. I'm someone that I'm not in love with golf. I don't love golf. I like to get away from it. I like to not play the game. And, at the end of every year in December when the tour finishes here, I like to have a couple of months off. And so for me, it was just an extended time off. But then it got to the point that, this extended time is just continually extending. And just having that uncertainty about when I would be playing again, I wanted to stop worrying about that. And then I thought, go and do something.
Tell people what you did. Tell people what you actually did. They'll find it staggering.
Oh, well, I just spent a year landscaping. I just had a friend who just started up a landscaping business back home, and I played a bit of golf with him. I just said, "Oh, look, mate, if you got anything going around, I'd love to do something." And anyway, first day I went and I was probably hedging for about 6 hours and I was a broken man by the end of it. But
what do you mean, cutting a hedge, making it nice and straight?
Trimming hedges and things like that. And, by the end of, that was February 2021, sorry. And then I finished up in February this year and then went and played TPS Sydney. But look, it was, for me, I used to love the gardening. That was my relaxation time when I was at home. And it's gardening, but it's other stuff. It's irrigation. It's things that I didn't know how to do, which now I know how to do. And it was something that I really enjoyed. And I liked that feeling of having a real job. To me, it felt like a real job.
Oh, it's a real job. No fear about that.
What I've done for a living for the last 20 years doesn't really feel like a real job to a lot of people. So, I did enjoy that. I enjoyed, going home to my own bed day after day, which I hadn't done for 20 odd years. But, I enjoyed the time away from golf. I didn't miss golf. I didn't watch golf, didn't read about golf. And I just had, it's been a real freshening couple of years for me. And, and towards the end of last year, then I started to play golf sort of once every month. And then, in the new year, I was playing twice a week. And I just sort of was feeling that I'd be getting back in the swing of it. And then I wanted to use TPS Sydney and the New South Wales Open just to see where my game was at leading back into Japan. And, it didn't feel like I'd been away for 2 years at all.
That's quite extraordinary. So just to clarify, so you were doing sort of 5 days or 5.5 days a week. It'd be a fair bit of lifting, building retaining walls, moving rocks and rubbish.
Yeah, I was doing somewhere between 30 to 40 hours a week. And, I was absolutely wrecked every day I'd get home. But, I enjoyed that. I haven't been to the gym now for probably 15 months because I'd get home and I'd be so exhausted that I wouldn't want to go.
But you've had a workout anyway, haven't you? It's a different sort of workout, but working physically with your hands all day, every day and with your body is a very much a positive workout, isn't it? That'll keep you in shape.
And look, my body has felt better than it ever has the last 2 years. And then when I started to play golf again, then my back issues were flaring up. My muscles were getting tight, just the twisting and the turning that, I hadn't been doing for a couple of years. But, now I've played my first tournament back here in Japan now and, I'm back to stretching and, getting into those routines again. So, looking forward to this year. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling fresh. I know that my game's still good. Still a bit of fine tuning to do, and I'm confident that I'll be back competing again very soon.
So no golf at all for the bulk of that year? You said you played once a month towards the end of it. Did you play any golf at all while you were doing the landscaping? Or?
Oh, there were times that I wouldn't have played for 6 months.
The Bruce Litsky of Australian golf.
Yeah, it was, you just get caught up in life. I've had my boys week on, week off, and, when I have the boys, it's 100% into them, and then I'm working the other week. So, I'm just exhausted for 2 years. So now I almost feel that I'm on holidays now because, I get Mondays, Tuesdays off. And then now I'm, play golf on Wednesday and hopefully play golf Thursday through Sunday.
That's right. You're playing at least 2 days every week, but four would be even. You want to be a bit careful. That's what all of us recreational golfers think, that professional golf is a holiday, don't we? You would have come across this in practice.
Well, constantly. You do, but you just don't really understand what goes on behind the scenes.
That's exactly right. The golf course, once you've turned professional, in many ways becomes the sanctuary, doesn't it? All the other stuff that is professional golf, the worrying about the cards, the tournament invitations, the scheduling, the travel, it doesn't matter who you are, how much money you've got, almost. Travel is always an issue, isn't it? There's always a bag lost somewhere. It's gone to the wrong place. Sometimes it's got your golf clubs in it. Hotels aren't ready when you arrive. All of that stuff is fun when you're on a holiday, isn't it? What's it like to live week to week like that?
Look, it's not the worst thing in the world, is it? Yeah, it's fun. It is fun most of the time. When we do get on the golf course, that's what we're best at. So all the stuff away from golf is stuff that you don't really have control over. But once you get to the golf course, that's what you do have your control over. So, as you said, that's our safe place, or, that's the place where we feel most comfortable, is on the golf course. So, yeah, there's a lot that goes on, as you said, the lost bags, the travel, not getting lost and things like that. So, but it's when you're playing well, I don't think there's too many jobs in the world that are better than this.
Let's talk about that. 15 wins on the Japan tour. You could walk down the street in Canberra, Sydney, and you do. I'm sure most people wouldn't know who you are. I imagine you're more recognised in Japan in many ways than you are here at home in Australia. Talk a little bit about that and the other things that come with it. This sort of thing, you've got to do podcasting. I know early in your career in Japan, you were one of the longer hitters, so you were constantly having to do articles in magazines and talk about that. You were sort of quite the legend. Talk about that whole side of golf. And I imagine the joy of, for somebody who's a bit of a homebody, being a star in Japan and an unknown at home.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty anonymous everywhere I go, to be honest. Even up in Japan, unless there's a golf tournament around, and you know that there's a lot of people that love golf. I can go everywhere. People, I don't think I get recognised all that often, but I feel like a normal person everywhere I go, which I really like. But when I do get recognised up here and, might get asked for a photo or autograph, that's nice too. But, like up here, the people are very respectful. They leave you alone most of the time. So, and when I get home, no one's, I'm just a normal person. So there's nothing different about me. I play golf quite well. And I've had, a bit of success up here, but really, I'm no different to anyone else.
I can vouch for that. I think you're still the only professional golfer who's ever bought me a beer. So there you go, and I still remember that. Royal Pines, all those years ago. You put your hand in your pocket and bought a beer. So not that I've drunk with a whole lot of professional golfers, so it's a fairly small field. Winning golf tournaments and the game itself. Talk a bit about that. I remember Marcus Fraser, I asked him what's it like to be in contention in a golf tournament, that back nine, and I think he described it as like walking along a high wire. you're just in this heightened state of kind of reality. What's been your experience with those sort of things? You've won 15 times, and I'm sure that there's been plenty of times you thought you should have won and you didn't get across the line. Talk about that. What's that like, that bubble? And is there any way to know without actually being in it?
Well, look, I think it's almost easier being in contention to win a tournament than it is grinding it out on a Friday afternoon to make a cut. Because the big difference there is that when you're trying to grind to make a cut, your game is not 100%. But when you are...
It's a negative experience.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And then once you're in contention to win tournaments, you know your game's good and you know that your confidence level is quite high. So for me, that's what I take out of it. Whenever I'm in contention, I know that my game's good and, you know, I can execute what I'm trying to do more often than not. Now, there are times that, you know, you do everything you should to win a tournament and it doesn't happen. You know, there's been multiple times where I think I should have won a tournament and I haven't done that. But there's been other times that I've won tournaments that I didn't feel that I should have won. So, you know, but for me, when I am in contention, I just feel that I'm going to win because my game's good, I'm in control, and that's the thought process that I have. Whereas, you know, I seem to get more nervous when I'm trying to make a cut on a Friday afternoon. So, yeah, it's funny. When your game's good, your confidence is high. When you're not quite on, then all the doubts sort of start to creep in.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
What's it like having like a 54-hole lead? What's the day before the golf gets underway on Sunday? Let's say you're one in front or you're tied for the lead through 50 holes. You're playing in the final group Sunday afternoon. There's a lot of time ticks over there. Must feel like an eternity before you get to the first tee Sunday. I know you've told me before that you wish you didn't, but you can have negative thoughts in those situations. And how do you deal with all of that? What's that situation like?
Oh, look, it's tiring. It's very tiring. Mentally, you lie awake at night playing the golf course over and over and over. And, you know, on most golf courses you play, there might be one tee shot that worries you. And you'll just go, oh, how am I going to get through that tee shot the next day? But these are all thoughts that I think most people would have. You know, if you can go to sleep and get your 8 hours before a final round when you're leading, then you're pretty amazing
Yes.
to be able to do that. But yeah, your mind races. You know, you're just thinking of all the possibilities that could happen. But yeah, you try and get your 3 or 4 hours if you can, and the adrenaline sort of keeps you going. I think that's what it is. You know, like I'm sure other people will be different, but I think for a big percentage of people, they would, you know, their sleeping pattern goes out the door, and all you're doing is just thinking about how you're going to be playing that round of golf the next day. And then what you don't realise is that hole that I was lying awake, you know, worrying about for 3 hours the night before, you get there and you just stand up and hit it. So
because you're playing well.
It always seems worse when you're laying in bed than it does when you actually get there.
There's an old saying, we spend an awful lot of our lives worrying about things that haven't happened yet. That's true, right. Isn't it? That's very true. And the day itself, does it take an eternity to get to your tee time when you've got an afternoon tee time on a Sunday?
Well, in Japan, it's all different because the last group's teeing off here at about 10 o'clock.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, most of the time, the tournaments are done by 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Why is that?
Why? I think it's more for TV because they put a package together. They don't do a live telecast a lot of the time. So it's a taped. Taped, and then from 4 till 6, they might be able to put a package together of the golf.
Wow.
But, you know, it's great. I like the fact that there's no sitting around in the mornings. You wake up, you have your breakfast, and then it doesn't matter if you're first off the tee or last off the tee. There's, you know, you're done by
3.
Sort of 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Get out into the garden. Fantastic. You mentioned it a couple of times, the TPS event in Sydney. I'm going to ask you a couple of things about this. But the first one being, were you surprised at your own performance? I think it was your very first tournament back after a year of landscaping, essentially.
Yeah.
And you ended up in a playoff. And we know that the last round got essentially cancelled. You'd played, I think, 4 holes when they called play because of a storm. Then you went into a playoff with Jared Felton, who hit just a remarkable. Not much you could have done about that, I wouldn't have thought, the shot that he hit in the play. But were you surprised to find yourself there?
Oh, yes and no. It was funny because all my rounds that I'd had, I was just playing with my mates, but every round that I'd played leading into that, I was shooting some really crazy numbers. And so by doing that away from professional golf, it does give you some sort of confidence, but at the same time, I wasn't sure if that was going to transcend into the real competitive golf. And, I hadn't played Bonnie Doon since the new layout had been put together. I think it was sort of mid to late 90s that I'd played it. And so I had no thoughts about the golf course, and I turned up and I liked what I saw. And, I think the course being wet helped because it was, you pick your number and you'd hit the numbers. But, I knew that I felt that my game was good, but turning up and putting that into tournament conditions, I wasn't sure of. But, the longer the week went, the more confident that I got. And it didn't, as I said earlier, I didn't feel that I'd been away for 2 years. Because I've been so conditioned to be doing this type of thing for the last 20 years that having 2 years off and I just being in a happy headspace, it just didn't feel as stressful as I remembered it to be.
Yeah. Somewhat like riding a bike, Brendan, like riding a bike. You kind of don't forget, do you?
Yeah,
you get on the bike 4 years
right.
later and it's like you kind of never got off. There's a few bits and pieces.
That's right. But, I still laugh at it to think that I'd played no golf and then almost one hole off winning a tournament. That just seems a bit crazy. But it was good for me. There's still getting into that playoff. It still had the competitive juices flowing. I was excited again, and it was fun, and things that I'd forgotten about for a couple of years. It sort of came back to me, and I'm excited to be playing golf again. I still don't love the game,
right,
but I enjoy it, and it's good to see people that I've known for many years, and it's just it feels good to be back out there.
Yeah, indeed. Be an awful lot of the other blokes in that field must have been very annoyed at the notion that you could take 2 years off and come down here, and they've been working like monkeys for that whole 2 years doing whatever they can to stay in there, and then you just wander in and play well. So best of luck to you. Quickly on to Japan. You've been up there for a very long time. 2 things I want to ask you about. First one, have you seen already evidence in the last week or two of a change in Japan since Hideki won the Masters last year? We all assumed from the outside that would be a huge deal. Has that been the case? Have you noticed anything that sort of said, it didn't used to be like that?
Well, I can't really comment on that at all because this first tournament we played, there were no spectators at the golf. And so what I had noticed was that I hardly recognised any of the players. They seemed to be a lot younger than what I remember.
Thought you'd walked into the creche.
Yeah, and there'd be the older blokes that would come up and, say hi and nice to have me back and that type of thing. But there's a big percentage of the tour now that I've got no idea who they are. So, I feel like I'm the new kid on the block because I don't know anyone out there.
Yeah, that's bizarre. And what about culturally, Brendan? We know that Brad Kennedy packed up his whole family and moved to Japan for a couple of years. And what about the culture up there and what you've learnt from that, golf aside? That's a fascinating life experience to spend so much time in another country, and particularly not America or the UK, which are fairly recognisable to us. There's no cricket in Japan. There's no rugby league. There's no Aussie rules. It's a totally different place. Yeah,
it is. When I first turned up here, I think I was 25 or 26. I was clueless, and to some point, I still am clueless. I still don't speak the language. I've never really learnt the language. I understand if I'm listening to people, I can understand certain things. I don't understand the sentence structure as far as speaking it. But yeah, there are so many differences to Japan, but at the same time, you've got to embrace those differences. You've got to, you've got to understand that things are done differently here. And I think I've been successful because I've accepted all those things. They are done differently, but you just go with the flow, and it's a very easy place to be. I love the onsen culture that they have up here. So for me, every day I'll finish my golf and I'll go to the sauna and the spa and the cold bath and the hot bath, and that's my way of finishing my day, relaxing, spending a couple of hours just putting into myself. And then the food up here is fantastic. The travel is so easy. So as far as being in a country that you don't understand the language, it is a very, very easy place to commute. You never have any issues with food. People are friendly. It's a safe place. There's so many positives for it. And I'll always point good young players, to try Japan.
Well, of course, you were not a pioneer. We've had a lot of Australian players over the years who have played and made good careers in Japan. There was probably a bit of a lull of that through the 90s. You kind of restarted it. A bunch of guys came to Japan after you sort of went up there and started to win and whatnot. That feels like it might have tailed off a bit again. Am I right about that? Japan's less of an option for Australian players?
Well, possibly. There's always a handful of new players that either try to get through Q School or do get through. I just think the real good players these days aren't looking at Japan. No. They're looking at, the European Tour, which is the DP Tour, right?
Call it the European Tour. We'll call the major the Dinosaur. We'll call it the European Tour. We're old blokes. Yeah, we can do what we want.
Whatever they're calling it these days, Europe or the US.
The US,
and if you are good, there's, I say go for it.
Is Japan a good place on the path to there? Is Japan a good place to work on a game to take to America?
I think so, for the fact that it is different. It is different. Going from Australia to the US, there's very few differences. You can foods. It's more fattening in the US, but it's the same food. We speak the same language. There's not too many differences. But you come up here and you get out of your comfort zone, and you just experience new things. And I just think that. Getting back to Greg Norman, he was a worldly player. He played everywhere, and he dominated everywhere. So, and I take my hat off to guys like Lee Westwood, who have travelled the world and played everywhere. And Lee's been a fantastic player for the last 25 years, and those that play all around the world just seem to be more in touch with reality than those that, play in the US, the Americans that play in the US that don't travel.
It's a bubble, isn't it? It's a bubble, and it'd be easy to find yourself in that bubble very comfortably. You can understand the appeal of the bubble, can't you? What a wonderful place to live, but not necessarily
life's
healthy.
Pretty simple on that tour, when everything's given to you and you're playing for astronomical amounts of money. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Back to the TPS quickly. I meant to ask you this earlier. How'd you feel about the event? This interesting notion of women and men playing together. How did that go? Did you play with any of the women in that event? And how was that experience? Because you would, I imagine, would never have done that in a formal setting, or certainly not for a very long time, if at all. And then juniors come in there as well. What was your feeling about the whole? From the outside, it feels like a really feel-good, fun golf festival. What about for the players?
Yeah. Look, I played with, I think, Kirsten Rudgley. Is that?
Yeah, just finished 7th or 8th at the Augusta National Women's.
Yeah, I played with Kirsten, and I was impressed with her game, but she was the only lady that I played with. But yeah, look, I think it's good. I think Australia needs to try these different things. It's a tough landscape, professional golf in Australia, and if you've got a new product or a different product, I think it can get both, the men and women out to watch. I think it was a good thing. I did, as I said, I only played with Kirsten. I didn't play with anyone else.
Was the
so I
vibe?
didn't really.
Yeah, was the vibe of the tournament any different to guys playing?
Well, it was difficult because it was so wet all week that I didn't really see too many people out there apart from when we were playing.
Yeah.
So, look, I think it was good. I'd seen on TV a couple of the previous events, where there was an interest there. So I think it's a good thing.
You would have played the Vic Open, I assume, at some point, both the men's and women's fields, but playing for separate trophies?
I haven't played.
You haven't been there? Right, okay. You should.
No.
That's a real festival of golf. That's my preferred format. Tough to do on a week-to-week basis in Australia. You can't get the fields for the women. It's not possible.
Yeah,
we don't have enough professionals.
The one thing that I did find a bit strange is that the men and women playing for one trophy. Yes, I agree that they can play in the same tournament, but you've got to differentiate those events.
I think we are old because I feel a bit the same. I'm not sure if there's ever. I think they do as good a job as you can do of getting the tees about right to make the games somewhat fair. And we see that we see quite a few women, and they are good players. Don't for a moment be fooled that Hannah Green can't play the game as well as an awful lot of people. But I'm not sure you can ever overcome that completely. But I'm not sure you need to in every tournament either. A series of these TPS events where that's the format, I think it's not the Australian Open. Nobody's attaching the prestige of an Australian Open, and that doesn't mean it's not a worthwhile event. So I think the experiment has been real. I'm the first one to criticise people in the PGA for all sorts of things, but I think that's been a really good step forward. And I wonder, a lot of this stuff I think is generational. If you were 20, just starting out your career and playing in those events, I suspect you'd have a different mindset, not having been exposed to 20 years of golf being this way.
Yeah, I agree.
On that, did we play too much 72-hole stroke play, which seems to be one of the other issues as an entertainment?
No, I don't think so. I think that's how you find the best player over a 4-day period. Yes, playing match play, it's a fun event, but it's like tennis. Like you get drawn. It's so much on the draw. A random draw. You get number one plays a lowly ranked player, and that lowly ranked player could
win. Could beat the world number one.
But
same true
it's
in
not
golf.
going to happen very often.
Same true in golf. Nick Ahern beat Tiger twice at the match play. You said you played Tiger at the match play, did you?
Yeah. I played Tiger. He was I just went over for the holiday.
Yeah. How'd that go? How was it?
Oh, look, he got me 3 and 2. Which I wasn't disgraced, but look, it was. Did I think I was going there to win? No. Once again, it was in the middle of my off season, and I turned up. And
shouldn't you be? There'll be people all over the world listening to this, and they'll be just spitting their tea out, thinking, "How could a professional golfer go to an event not thinking that they're there to win?" It's a given.
It's just no. It was just Could I win? Could I have won? Yes, I could have. But, once again, talking about being realistic and things, like I was in the garden when I found out that I was actually in the tournament to play Tiger. So, how's my preparation? And this is the other thing that I find that a lot of people don't understand is that, for these certain tournaments like this, when I'm in Australia and I'm flying over to the US to play one tournament, it takes you 4 or 5 days to get on the right time zone, and that's where I've struggled when I've played majors in the past, that, I'm in Japan and next minute I'm playing a British Open, and then you fly over there and your body clock's out and you can't compete against the best players in the world on that sort of preparation. You need to give yourself a couple of weeks to get acclimatized, to get on the right time zone before you can really think about competing with the best. And that's what I thought about with Tiger, like here I am, I get to play with the greatest player of almost all time, and I'm getting paid $40,000 to turn up and do it. So,
who's saying no to that?
That's what I thought about. I thought, wow, I'm getting paid to go and play with Tiger. How good's this?
Did you enjoy it? Nobody enjoys getting beaten, obviously, but did you enjoy it?
Oh, look, it was a wonderful experience for me. I didn't feel any love out there in front of the US crowds with Tiger coming back from his knee surgery. So, look, I knew that I was just a part actor in the whole thing, and I was happy with that. I've played the World Match Play 3 times, and I've played Tiger, Phil, and Adam Scott.
Right.
So, the 3. I've known Adam. I know Adam quite well, so that was fun. And Phil, he was fantastic the day that I met him, and once again, it was just nice to be up, living in their world for 4.5 hours.
Yeah. Actually quite an achievement to get to the top 64 in the world from Japan, isn't it? You've really got to play well in Japan to get enough world ranking points to get there.
Some good years of golf, yeah.
Yeah. So for people who aren't sure, it's not that easy. You very rarely see people from the Japan Tour make it there. You've said you're 47, Brendan. What's the future hold? I think we've come to that point of the conversation. Where are you now? Where are you going? I mean, I imagine the US Champions Tour is not at the front of your thing. You're not a Peter Senior type. You're not going to go over there and spend a bunch of time Q schooling and Monday queuing. It's probably the hardest tour in the world to get on, apart from maybe the Japan Ladies Tour. What will you do?
Well, look, back when I first turned pro, I had the ambition to be retired by 40. Right. Well, I'm 47 and I'm still going. I said I'd never play seniors golf. But,
as each year creeps closer, does that maybe?
Yeah, it's less than 3 years away now. And, there's a possibility. It's not a huge goal of mine. But look, if my game is still competitive when I'm 50 and I'm enjoying it, and I think the 2 years I've just had away from golf has maybe increase my longevity in the game, because I do feel fresh again, and I feel that I'm enjoying it again, and so and that's the one thing for me that I'll find very easy. If I'm no longer competitive, it'll be easy to finish up. It'll be easy to walk away. But if I'm still competitive and I'm still enjoying it, then I won't say that I will never play seniors golf. But it doesn't seem that long ago I was a young up and comer, and here I am, not far off seniors golf.
No, I remember when you were a up and comer too. I was a younger one as well. More likely to see a ute with B. Jones and Sons landscaping on it, perhaps, than a tour bag with Brendan Jones, Champions Tour player.
Yeah.
You interested in business? Does that interest you, being a business person, having a business?
There's a possibility, like who knows where it's going to go. But the one thing that I do know is that something will happen. Just like this last year, I just went and helped a mate and loved it. So, I can try different things at 50. But yeah, I'm not worried now about what the future does hold. If the golf's not there, I'm not too concerned about it.
Fabulous stuff. Well, mate, it's been great to catch up and hear some of that. Great to hear that you're refreshed and raring to go. We'll watch your results in Japan for the rest of the year. You might surprise a few with that attitude by the sound of it. Been great to catch up. Look forward to seeing you back here, hopefully towards the end of the year, maybe playing a bit of tournament golf in Australia, which I know is difficult when you're in Japan, but it would be great if we could.
Yeah, good on you, Rod. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, mate.
I've known Brendan since way back when he won that Australian Amateur in 1999, and I can tell you he has not changed a bit over all that time. Still one of the game's most genuine people, and as his recent play proves, still has plenty of game. Well, that's it for episode 64, but on our next we shift gears a bit when John Huggan catches up with one of the most recognisable voices in the game.
But I don't watch week to week anymore. It's unwatchable for me. It's the commentary, the everything is just state-run television as far as I'm concerned, and so I don't like it.
That's Peter Costas next time on The Thing About Golf.